All right, guys, welcome to day number 1 of our mark training. I've got Teton, I've got my mark, and I've got my lunge whip. And right before we get started, I want to go ahead and give you guys a little bit of context as to what exactly this is going to do. Why is this important for your horse? Well, this is going to develop a lot of draw with your horses. It's going to enable you to teach your horse some pretty neat tricks in terms of helping them stay with you while you're doing the liberty, which is super important, as well as maybe eventually you want to have your horses end up running to you in the arena if someone sent them to you or something like that. And we've all probably seen the Budweiser commercials with the big pretty Clydesdales and the little puppy, or maybe even just a commercial of a horse running down the beach or something like that. And also some very famous movies, a lot of famous horse movies incorporate the concept of mark training. And what is it? It's the concept of your horse taking the mark, just like an actor or an actress would on stage, in a play, in a movie. It's your horse taking the mark. So what we've done is we've actually built a mark to teach your horse to take, which will be this plywood, 2 foot by 2 foot plywood piece that we introduced to you guys, and the tools that you're going to need to enable your horses to do this. And so the concept is that the mark itself is the quiet zone. It's vacation, it's home plate for your horses. When your horses are on it, nothing can be done. They are safe, and as long as they're there, all is right with the world. They can relax. When they come off of it, there's work to be done. And so that's why their horses get so much draw, because horses really truly just want to be left alone. They want relaxation, and we're giving them a specific place to find that. And so that's what we're going to be doing, guys. And essentially, you guys are going to have the tools of the tricks of the trade that a lot of movie horses have. And eventually it's going to very much help us with our liberty work. So we're going to go ahead and get started here with Teton. And you can see I've got him tied up to one of the uprights here. And I'm going to place this mark right in the middle of that so that it's all very symmetrical. And I'm going to step up on here. I'm going to make sure it doesn't wiggle too much or anything like that, because your horses, they might paw at it initially, and when they do, they might turn it over. If they do, just relax, back your horses up, fix the mark, and ask them to step back on it. Some of your horses are pretty playful, and they might be more apt to do it. It's okay when they're exploring it early on. Later on, we'll certainly go ahead and discourage them from continuing to do it, because we want them to step up on the mark. But here, I've set the mark down, and I'm going to ask Teton to step up to me. And so I'll step back, and towards my back towards you guys. I'm going to raise this whip towards his hind end to help drive him forward and up onto the mark. Now, of course, he's been introduced to this several times. But for your guys' horses, I want you to do the same thing. Your horses need forward, so you drive them from behind, and then let them explore the mark as they need to. And if your horse is really struggling with the concept of stepping towards you while they're tied up to the wall, check out our groundwork video on creating draw in the stop cue with your horses, which is a series where we teach our horses to walk towards us up and down the wall. That will really very much help us help your horses understand what we're getting ready to ask them to do. And I want to make sure that you guys can also see, I have about 12 to 18 inches of lead rope here for Teton, and you can tell that it's not tight here up underneath this chin. There's still slack in the lead rope, but if he stepped too far over the mark, then he'd hit contact on the halter. The reason we have him tied a little shorter in the first session, and you know, this session, guys, this could last you a day if you worked on it 1 or 2 times. It depends on how your horses take to it, or maybe it takes you several days. It just depends on your horse. But we're helping the horse find the answer. So the answer is for him to stand up on the mark. And if he was super long on the lead rope in the very beginning, he might be flopping around here, walking back and forth, tripping over the mark and everything. And having a shorter lead rope just helps him find that answer a little bit more. And certainly our pressure and release of telling him when he gets up there, all is right with the world. And eventually you'd want to be able to walk away from your horses and go out of the arena, go get a drink out of the fridge, like whatever you want to do, and your horses stay on the mark. But early on, you might notice that you might need to put them on the mark, rub them on the shoulder, and you might start stepping 2 inches away and they start following you. You just simply ask them to step back up on the mark. Now, really big pointer here. When you go to take your horses off the mark, And I'll get to how long to leave them on there in a second, but when you go to take them off the mark, you need to back them off the mark. We don't want our horses to learn to run over the mark, because if we're teaching our horses to run to us, we don't want them running over home plate, because chances are we're on the other side of home plate. So we want them to run to the mark and stop directly on it. So when you go to ask your horses to back off, make sure that, or to step off of the mark, make sure you back them off of it. Now, how long should you leave your horse on the mark? You know, guys, you don't want to leave your horse on the mark so long they get themselves in trouble early on. We want them to get on the mark, and if they're standing there pretty calm and quiet, then we'd step them off the mark before they got themselves in trouble. But then, of course, we would want to let them make the mistakes so that we can correct them later on, so that they can, it's just about solidifying their understanding that they need to stand on the mark. So here, I would step over here, reach under Teton's chin, ask him to back up. I'm going to back him up to the end of the lead rope a little bit. Then I'll step back, raise my whip a little bit. You can see how he kind of looked down, checked it out, stepped up on it, and there you go. So I'd like to leave your horses, you might leave them on there for a matter of 1 or 2 minutes or 5 minutes early on, and then, you know, but certainly the biggest thing I will find when your horses will test it is the further away you get from them, the more they will play around with the idea of with coming off of it. So while you're also trying to figure out how much time they should stay on there, also increase the distance which you leave. And you guys can play around with this with your own horses, but be sure that, you know, early on you let them find the answer, and then you eventually let them figure out that if they step off that there is pressure. And so what I'll do here, though, is it's really important that we do both sides with our horses. So I'll step Teton back off the mark. I'm going to ask him to step just around me here. I'm going to set my whip off to the side. And there you go. And I'm standing on the mark so that he won't actually take it back. Because if I'm off the mark, your horse is allowed to step up onto it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring him around until he's right in front of it. I'm going to tie him back up in as similar of a length as I can, which is about the 12 to 18 inches. Just depends on how big your horse is. And then I'll do the same thing here on this side, where he can step up on the mark. There we go. And so you want to make sure that you work both sides of your horses. You want to make sure that you've let them explore the idea of stepping off the mark, so that you have the opportunity to put them back on it, and that you can make the right thing easy and the wrong thing difficult. And guys, it doesn't have to be a tremendous amount of pressure, because the idea is that pressure is energy, and eventually we want that much energy to draw your horses to you. So, you know, if you're really getting busy and getting after them here, one, you're probably going to make them worried, because they have no idea what you're asking them to do. And all we're trying to do is show them, by having them tied up short, that they can find the answer. And so as we go on, you guys will find that we're going to end up taking them off the wall, being able to work around it. And there's going to be things that we have to do to make sure our horses understand it's actually the mark itself that starts to develop the draw. So that's day number 1 here with Teton. Be sure you work both sides of your horses. Start increasing the distance from which you step away from your horse, and letting them explore potentially coming with you, or getting, maybe they get a little bored with it and they're starting to play around, they step off. That's all okay. It's all a training opportunity to help our horses find out that the mark is in fact the best place to be. So you guys, if you have any questions, be sure to put them in the comments below, but also be sure to check out the day 2 video, the session 2 video ahead, because your question very well may be answered in that one or the future ones to come. But guys, thanks for tuning in for day 1 of mark training here with Teton and I. We're going to get started and show you guys session 2.